live and online. It's Sleepless with Steve and the Movie Book Club with your host, Steve Pulaski.
Hello, everybody. Back and better than ever. This is Sleepless with Steve without Steve. If you were here last week, you know that Steve's on vacation. Actually, I have him right here. I forgot I was wearing this shirt, actually. I just forgot about it. So Steve's actually with us, in our hearts, in memoriam. One of these days, I should actually just tape that to, like, the top of the shirt, in memoriam, and have, like, this glow behind him. But yeah, we are Sleepless with Steve. It is me, Joe Viso, and Dominic Guanzon in the blue polo. We are here to give you our weekly movie reviews, our weekly discussion on the film industry, and so much more. I just realized the scroll has a trademark emblem on it still, even though I deleted it like 3 times. I don't know why it's there. It's really frustrating to work with sometimes. But in the meantime, while I try to figure out how the hell to get that trademark out of there, Dom, how are you doing?
I'm doing all right. I'm going to be living by myself for the next 20 days because Chelsea's in Italy.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, actually, for a school
for
trip.
me.
Yeah. And so that means I have to learn to cook for myself, among other things. But that's the most pressing need, as taught to me by The Sims, is your hunger. That's the one that can kill you. So today I made for dinner smoked salmon. So I got from the fridge, just smoked salmon with some Philadelphia cream cheese and put it on my last remaining tortilla and 2 leftover crab rangoons. So we're off to a great start. We'll see how much weight I gain or lose, or how much food poisoning I get in the next 20 days. But until then, I'm here.
Oh, man. I couldn't fix the trademark thing, so now it just says unfrosted review at the very bottom. I'm going to hide the scroll. I'm going to hide
Is that what you're trying to do?
Yeah, I'm going to hide the scroll eventually because it's just going to say unfrosted review. I don't know why it says theaters in there, actually. Hold on a minute, man. This is I spent as much time on this scroll as I did Jerry Seinfeld in this movie. Hold on a minute.
No, but for the most part, it's actually really nice weather, so we'll see how much of the city I can enjoy. But there's also some fun things cooking, and I know that Joe has some recent celebrations academically.
Yes.
To enjoy. I think I'm so proud of you, dude. We're so happy for you.
No, thank you. Yeah, so if anybody's been keeping up with, our life stories on Sleepless, the lore, these past 2.5 years, I would say, I've been going to get my master's degree, and it's actually about to come to an end. Actually, no, 2 years, yeah, because I started in winter of 2022, so that would make sense. It goes in, it's spring 2022, just starts in January. Yeah, so it's finally coming to an end, this whole saga of me doing schoolwork and being swamped in that and swamped in full-time job and swamped in so many other things. And now, like, my focus has just become to just, like, hobbies and stuff. Like, honestly, man, like, there was a point in time, I'm not going to lie, and, like, it sucks that Steve's not here to hear this as well because, it would be interesting to see what he thought. In 2023, I thought about just stepping away from the show entirely. Like, that's how, like, bad and stressed out I got, where it was, like, going to see a movie during the week with, especially when I was doing, 2023, for those of you who don't know, was a year where I had to have a class basically going on from January till December. I was in school, basically. There was no summer break for me. I only had a winter break, and that was about it. And I honestly, like, about the summertime, I was losing it, man. I was going insane. And we had theaters, were coming back in full swing. And, they're still recovering from COVID. You can make the argument even today about that and everything. But more movies were coming to the theater than ever before. And we were going. And, yeah, man, just driving to the theater and trying to make time during that whole year for me was impossible. Now, luckily, I decided, let me just try this. Let me just do, like, a sabbatical and, like, take, like, 3 to 4 weeks off and handle that. And that helped a ton, and that made me remain on the show. And I was like, okay, that's all I had to do was just let me take, like, some time away. I did miss some major reviews, like the new Indiana Jones movie and stuff. But, hey, man, in the end, like, it was worth it because now here I am still hosting the show. And honestly, now that, like, school's coming to an end. I've turned in my last assignment as of yesterday. Uh, I look at this and I'm like, oh my god, I can't wait to go back to the movie theater. I've been going to watch because they're doing the Spider-Man movies in theaters again, and I've been like, at first I was like, I'll only go see like 3 of them, but I was just like, oh my god, I have free time, dude. Fuck it, I'll go see all of them. And now I'm like, I'm doing all of them. You can't pay me to go see Phantom Menace though. I know that came back to theaters. I will not go see that movie. Um, and like, yeah, I was thinking about going to see Planet of the Apes tomorrow night before my graduation. Tons of other stuff. It's just like, oh wow, I actually genuinely enjoy going to the theater again now that I have this experience, and I do look forward to Wednesdays even more now that I don't have to worry about school lingering on the back of my head. So yeah, thank you, Dom, for congratulating me and everything. I'll probably celebrate more when Steve is here, and actually once I've gone past my graduation, which is Friday this week.
Hell yeah. But we got an action-packed show here for you, comprised of the Pop Tarts movie and the Rich CEOs. So yeah, this is gonna be a time, and
Yeah.
it was great because we're debuting this new not title card, but rather UI for us here. I don't know the official term, but
No, it's not up yet. It'll be up next week.
oh, just kidding. That's gonna look really cool next time. But you got a nice little teaser right
Yeah.
now.
I mean, for those of you
Um,
who like, see the link on Facebook or see the thumbnails on YouTube, you were like, huh, that looks a lot better than just, Steve in a shadow talking into a microphone in a studio that we're not even in anymore. Like, it's just like, that looks really weird. Like, why does every background look like that? Now you've actually seen like thumbnails are being made. I'm kind of doing a whole rebranding thing with Sleepless. Not to make the show, not that we're shooting for the stars here with the show, but damn man, at least make this, look a little bit more presentable.
yeah, man.
So
We want to go into it.
yeah, man, let's get into it. So tonight we are reviewing. Let me turn off the scroll so I don't lose my mind reading that over and over again. Tonight we are reviewing Unfrosted. It is a film directed and written by Jerry Seinfeld, and we haven't seen Jerry Seinfeld in a film since the B movie. So it's been quite some time since Jerry's actually been in front of a camera, or just be been generally in front of like anything film related. You could find him on Netflix still, along with this movie, with his TV show Cars and Coffee with comedians. Pretty decent show. He's a charming host. He has some pretty funny people that come up on there. I haven't kept up with much of his stand-up since for like forever, honestly. I know he did one in 2020 called 23 Hours. I didn't watch it, so that is, say what you will about that. I, don't know too much about it. But when I heard that Jerry was going to come and direct and write a movie, I was like, hey, that's actually kind of cool. Jerry Seinfeld is going to come back to movies. It's been so long. I can't wait to see this actually play out. The movie is also written by Spike Fernstein and Andy Robin. It stars Jerry Seinfeld. It stars a lengthy cast of comedic actors, which we will get more into later. But some of the main ones here are Jerry Seinfeld, Jim Gaffigan, Melissa McCarthy, and Amy Schumer. I'll just name those 4 for right now because we'll be naming a ton more later. Don, before we get started on this, I gotta ask you a question, man. What do Pop Tarts mean to you? Like, do they have any significance to you, man? Like, were they a major part of your childhood?
You know what? Yes. Thinking about it, I'm not really razzed about them now. I mean, if I were to have one, I'd like enjoy it. But yeah, growing up in the early 2000s, it was good. It was a good treat, always with the frosting on it. The strawberry one was for me with the white frosting and the color and the multicolor sprinkles, dotted sprinkles. That was the standard for me, and I think was for everyone else. But for me, it's whatever. I know American breakfast in general is kind of screwed. It has been screwed for a long time because it's just sugar.
Mm.
I remember my aunt telling me, who she lives in Hong Kong and she spends a lot of time in the UK as well. But my aunt, she was like, yeah, so a lot of these American breakfasts that I have whenever I visit you guys, uh, look, we cannot have them in the UK or Hong Kong because the sugar content is too high.
Yeah.
Like it is unhealthy to have on our store shelves as breakfast items marketed to kids because of the sugar. And I was that really opened my eyes. I'm like, wow, yeah. And one of the biggest culprits is Honey Nut Cheerios.
Really?
Um, yeah, Honey Nut Cheerios are actually specifically Honey Nut Cheerios are really bad for you because they're chock full of sugar. It's the marketing. It's the marketing. It's like may help lower your cholesterol. Yeah, that's a real may. Uh, and but your diabetes. Um,
Well, I'm glad as a
it's
kid I was addicted to the Apple version of Cheerios. I always thought those
there
were
you go.
better.
Yeah. So, anyways, cereal's a scam. Have a lot of bacon. That's healthy. No. I don't know. I just kind of have there is well, okay. I'm gonna go on a rant about cereals now. The point is, Pop Tarts. Eh,
That's kind of how I felt about Pop Tarts growing up too as a kid. I liked only one flavor really, and it was the hot fudge sundae flavor. And I didn't even
dude, that's that is a dessert. Yes,
that that
that's not a breakfast. That's a
no,
dessert.
that is a dessert, and that's how I treated it as a kid. I didn't toast that thing in the toaster. I would freeze
I never
them.
toasted them. Did the frosting hold or did they melt?
You know what? This is why I never toasted them.
Yeah, my mom and I were too scared to toast them because like, isn't it gonna melt? I don't
It never melted, surprisingly enough. It
know.
never
Okay.
did for me. But you know what it did do? It made the fucking filling scorching hot, and it also would crumble to like fucking smithereens whenever I would like try
Okay.
to. There was one time I remember as a kid, I picked it up from the toaster and it broke off in my hand and then landed back in the toaster and it just sunk to the bottom. And I'm like, okay, I'm never getting that one back. like,
Yeah, I'm glad I'm
um,
not. I never did that. I'm very glad I never toasted them.
and like I used to, like, yeah, I used to toast the strawberry flavor. Wasn't a fan. I ate it plain sometimes, and I thought like this is a little bit better. Wild berry, decent. Chocolate chip was disgusting to me. S'mores was gross. The marshmallow filling they used in there was gross.
Cinnamon. Did you have cinnamon?
Brown sugar cinnamon wasn't bad. That was probably actually pretty decent.
That was one of my personal favorites. I think the standard strawberry for me was my favorite. Uh, Hot fudge and then yeah, cinnamon. Those are my go-tos.
Okay. But yeah, the hot fudge sundae was my favorite. And I used to freeze them. And I freeze them because
Mm.
they were way better frozen. Specifically, only that flavor tasted good frozen. Any other flavor, I tried cookies and cream, not good. Chocolate fudge, not good. But hot fudge sundae, for some reason, freezing that one tasted perfectly fine, and I would treat it as a dessert.
Hell yeah.
Um, but Jerry Seinfeld apparently thought the story of the creation of Pop Tarts would be interesting enough for a comedy that he's compared to. Uh, well, he didn't compare it to. He said, "I'm making this like the anti Barbie, where like yeah, it's similar, but it's the anti-established, like going against Kellogg's and everything, not making them look like." Good and light. Even though I would argue, like the Barbie movie didn't necessarily make Mattel look the best either. But hey, man,
They are two very interesting case studies.
yeah,
Unfrosted in particular. I was when I first heard of Unfrosted, I rolled my eyes,
yeah,
and then when Steve said, "Oh, apparently it's supposed to be a parody," I was like, "Okay, this piques my interest because that sounds." There's a lot of
yeah.
opportunity there for really good. Because we just had Barbie, we just had Air,
Yeah,
which is another corporate, and I love Air.
yeah, and
I
it was more of a
unironically love.
drama, but like still,
Yeah,
like it was tongue in cheek about it at times too.
yeah, but you know what? One of my favorite sports movies of the last decade. I'm
Yep,
not. I gave that 4 stars,
yep.
unironically.
Great movie, great movie.
Um, and then we come across Unfrosted, which is like, okay, um, it's not the movie I was hoping for. Let me say that. Not that I was hoping for too much, but I think we're on the same page with this. Maybe a little. I think I'm gonna come. I think from the comments in our chats, I think I'm gonna come across this a little bit more merciful, but not by much.
Okay.
We'll see.
We'll see. Yeah. So this movie, Jerry Seinfeld plays it's set in 1963 Michigan, and it's about basically the business rivals of Kellogg's and Post competing with one another to basically create the first Pop Tart that could change breakfast forever in their eyes. And it's done to an exaggerated thing to where like literally mascots are like these prized possessions, and they're actually like real people. Like Snap Crackle Pop, they're not elves, they're real people, and that's what they do for a living. They are the mascot of this corporation. The guy that plays Tony the Tiger is a thespian and all this other stuff. You have basically Jerry Seinfeld. He plays Bob Cabana, and he works with his partner Melissa McCarthy, who for some reason isn't actually labeled in top billing here, which is really weird.
Yeah,
Um,
that is.
what was her character's name?
Who cares? She's the NASA woman.
The NASA woman. There we go. God, hold on. She's got to be popping up at some point on here. Jesus Christ. How much further up
Donna
is
Stankowski. Who cares?
Stan? Yeah, Donna Stan. Yeah, Donna Stan. There we go. Who cares? Yeah, I should have just left it at that. They basically work under Mr. Kellogg III, who is played by Jim Gaffigan, and they're racing the beat post to that. Sounds simple enough, right? Sounds like a pretty simple thing. They can parody, the cereal mascots and, corporation humor. Because, there's some decent jokes that come in here. For instance, they have a award show called the Cereal and Spoons Awards. And it's funded by Kellogg. So, of course, they win all the awards and everything. The Quaker Oats guy is literally an Amish man. And, he talks about how, they make fun of the whole thing that there's no flavor to it. Very, very familiar humor. If you ever joked or have seen anybody joke about anything breakfast related, you've seen this stuff before.
Mm-hmm.
And even with this original humor, you've seen this stuff before as well. And you would think that, hey, look, as long as they stay on this parody of, racing to make the first Pop-Tart, maybe this movie will be decent. But for me, it's the fact that this movie doesn't know when to stop introducing people into plot lines that eventually create more plot lines. And it keeps going and going and going to where the movie just ends. And I forgot how many plot lines and how many characters were in this. Even to a point that, there was 2 characters that showed up at the end. And I'm like, oh, shit, yeah, I forgot you guys were even in this movie. This movie is... It doesn't know where it's going. I've never really seen a movie not know where it's going in a long time like Unfrosted.
Which the whole point is that it's so obvious where it's going, which is the creation of the first Pop-Tart. And yet, see, with Air, and we're going to be comparing a lot of Air and Barbie here, I'm sure. But with Air, it's like the entire goal is absolutely the creation of this shoe with some character exploration. And even when they get that shoe, there's still some cool things happening afterwards. That's fine, but it feels so focused and so trimmed down to that shoe. Meanwhile, Unfrosted, yeah, not we never, but it gets lost. It does get lost in its own quote unquote comedy. It's a very wacky, quote unquote, again, movie. It's what you think of as wacky. It feels boomer wacky, which makes sense because Jerry Seinfeld is apparently lead writer on this thing, and he's 70 years old.
Wow, he's 70?
He's 70.
He actually looks good for 70. I'll say that.
He looks great. He was giving me 50-year-old vibes.
Yeah, honestly, I literally thought he was in his 60s when this movie was playing.
Yeah. So good for him. But not good for us because it's a man, all over the place is something else. But how many laughs did you actually get out of this film, Joe?
About 3.
How many certified laughs? About 3?
About 3.
If I'm being honest, I think I got 3 to 5 chuckles. Yeah, and I think I can name them all here, which well, not all of them. I'm sure I'll forget immediately. Bill Burr's JFK, that was pretty funny. The dude blowing up, that was probably the biggest laugh for me. The way they did that shot.
Yeah. Him blowing up, that caught me off guard, and I did laugh at that. But even the scene following it, the funeral procession, I actually had a few chuckles throughout that because the wife's reaction to all that.
Yes, okay, that was really funny. Thank you. Yeah, and there's the thing. There's 500 different funny moments, and about that many of them land.
Yeah.
Supposedly supposed to be a funny moment.
There's a cameo from 2 people. I mean, there's a cameo from a lot of people in this movie. That won't help narrow it down. But there's specifically a cameo from another show that appears in this movie. And it's not Seinfeld. Because everybody thought...
Oh, okay. Now I know what you're talking about.
Everybody thought, oh, it's Seinfeld. No. It's actually... I thought it was probably the best joke in the movie. And frankly, it probably required the least amount of writing and just letting the guy who was the main actor of that said show just kind of spitball there. And I thought it had the funniest payoff, too.
Why are they so mean? Yeah. Yeah, and that's about it for the 90-minute runtime.
Yeah. It's insane because, for 90 minutes, you have... I'm going to list off some of the people that appear in this film. Because I'm sorry, but if you're honestly oh, don't spoil who pops up. Trust me, there's so many in here. You have Hugh Grant. You have Christian Slater. You have Amy Schumer. Well, Amy Schumer actually plays a character. You have Cedric the Entertainer. You have Sebastian Maniscalco. You have Bill Burr, like Dom said. The list just goes on and on and on and on. It just doesn't stop. And with each character they introduce, they're also introducing almost a storyline with them as well, or a conflict that needs to be resolved with them. It's like Jerry Seinfeld was driving down the street, and on the way to filming this movie, he was like, "Hey, Fred Armisen, how about you come into my set real quick? We're about to shoot the end of my movie. Hey, Dean Norris, come in my car real quick. Want to be on the set of my movie?" And it just didn't stop. He literally, I felt like, drove around Hollywood, and if he just saw an actor walking down the street or sitting outside of a cafe, he was like, "You want to be in my movie? Come on."
This is a calling in favors movie, and I'm curious to know what the budget would be specifically for actors, because it's like, yeah, so Peter Dinklage, just show up for a day.
Yeah.
We'll shoot all your scenes, and we'll it's me, Jerry Seinfeld. We'll just hang out for a bit, so we don't need to pay you that much. That I'm very curious to know
I
what the rate was.
I
So
wouldn't be
yeah.
surprised too if it's because like of Jerry Seinfeld, like A, his clout, like how famous he is, that they just didn't mind doing it, and B, the guy's been known for like he's rich as hell. He was
Mhm.
the biggest star of the '90s because of Seinfeld. That like he probably paid him out of his own pocket. Like he was just like, "Hey man, thanks for coming out here for a
Exactly.
day. Here's ten
It
grand."
has that Adam Sandler vibe to it, where it's like I'm
It
hanging
it
out with all my
it
friends.
really, that's a great comparison actually. It really did feel like those Adam Sandler movies where cameos are just happening one after another and they're just not stopping. Like I mean, but for me, I think it's even worse here because it's just like they just keep popping up for no reason, and it's just like my God, like there is no stopping this. With an Adam Sandler movie, it's like okay, they got Al Pacino and like one other person. This, it's like I kept saying like no shit, like they're in this movie too, like not in a good way, but in a bad way, like because it's just like, man, how many more people are you gonna cram into this fucking thing?
This style of comedy, we compared the plot to Air, to Barbie, and this is honestly trying to be really one for one. This is trying to be the Weird Al Yankovic
Yeah,
parody biography, which is a parody of those types of music biography movies, and that was pretty damn solid. Uh, if I were to watch it again, I probably wouldn't laugh as much, but there were some really good
yeah,
moments, and I like where it ended. It got just absolutely balls to the wall, insane, which really good. And Daniel Radcliffe was going on all the
yeah.
cylinders on that, and that was absolutely
I, I
great.
I think
But
I think that's
yeah,
what helps that kind of movie too, is the fact that everybody who's in that movie is playing their character to the max. Like Daniel Radcliffe is playing Weird Al Yankovic, and he is selling. I mean, everybody that pops up in that film, from Jack Black as a record producer, and like he just like he does the most cliche like record producer stuff, but he does it on purpose, and he just knows how to perfectly play it. I mean, like everybody in that movie for me, I thought did it. Like whoever played Madonna, I forgot who it was, but she killed it too. Um,
I don't. And here's the thing, though. It's like the cast of Unfrosted is they're not. I don't think they were necessarily phoning it in. I think everyone was doing an all right job at the very least. Even for their smaller runtimes. Jerry Seinfeld was probably the weakest person here, but again, that's probably just because he's 70 and he has to play like a 40-year-old guy.
yeah,
But regardless of that, even he was like, okay, sure. I think the problem here is like I don't know what you call it, like the craft. Look at like a movie like Airplane,
yeah.
or did you ever watch Top Secret, which was made by the same people, starring Val
No, I
Kilmer?
want to though. I've seen clips
That's
of
a,
that movie. The
that's one of
shootout
my
in the
favorite.
cabin is hilarious. I've seen
That's one of
that.
my favorite comedy movies ever. That is like Looney Tunes logic for so many jokes.
Yes.
It is a Looney Tunes movie, just straight up. And so was Airplane. And Unfrosted is actually trying, it's actually kind of in that bin as well.
Yeah.
But for some reason, it doesn't quite hit as much. And I think it's the lack of deadpan.
Yes,
I
there's
really
that.
think I think it's that. So think back to Airplane for you, right? Because you what I, I'm trying to think when the last time I've seen Airplane, but I feel like, especially with Leslie Nielsen, right? Leslie Nielsen, the reason why Leslie Nielsen is so good in his comedy roles is because he actually was like a leading man, straight faced action star in the 50s.
Yeah.
And that's what made him so good. Whereas with with Unfrosted, they really don't have any of that. It's wacky. It feels like these actors are just hanging out. Like I don't. It's all cameos. It's Jerry Seinfeld and Melissa McCarthy. At no point do I think they're other people.
Yeah.
Jim Gaffigan maybe is playing the most of a character here, just because Edsel Kellogg the third is such a crazy ass character, who like wrote pamphlets on why you should not masturbate. I'm not joking. Uh, but and sure, Hugh Grant as well. But for the most part, I think it has that distinct lack of deadpan that just kind of has an airy feeling to everything else. Even Barbie and Air, they have very serious moments,
Yeah.
comparative to their wackiest ones, and that's what it's earnest. Those movies feel earnest. Unfrosted doesn't have any of that.
I feel like Unfrosted just doesn't also fully commit to what it wants to be in terms of
Yeah,
comedy. Because with every person they bring in, they're bringing in almost like a new style of comedy with them. Like the whole Bill Burr as JFK feels like an entirely different movie, like in terms of its comedy in that scene, than what we get with the Milkmen, and then compared to what we get with the guy from Reno 911, who's basically playing a German ex-Nazi, and the guy that plays Chef Boyardee. Like their whole plot line. I mean, like that is like it's just like man, that straight up. I'm not even kidding. That plot line feels like I would see that in like all that. Like that would be like something would happen on like those
this
next.
some of these asides do have like some SNL
Yeah,
feels to them, and that's a more of a derogatory term
yeah. They
than
really
anything.
do. Like Hugh Grant was probably the character that when they kept cutting back to was the storyline I looked forward to the most because I thought he was keeping he was probably making me chuckle the most or laugh. And honestly, I just thought like the whole idea of like him being like a thespian actor as Tony the Tiger was kind of funny. But even where they go with that plot line, it gets ridiculous to where they're basically recreating the DC insurrection, but with mascots, serial mascots that is. And it was like I get what you're doing here, but like it's going on way too long now. Like they spent
Also, it sucks because it's like you're uh, you're pitting striking workers against the upper management, and the upper management are the good guys in this scenario. So that kind of left a bad taste in my mouth. Which we will. That's whatever, but we'll touch that in our second story. But
yeah.
anyway, for the most part, there's really not much to bite on here. It's as soon as that the first like 5 to 10 minutes flashed for me, I'm like, oh, this
Yeah.
is the style of
No,
movie we're gonna
it
have.
really is
And
that.
I it really left a it started with a bad taste in my mouth, and it ended with that same taste. I'm
It,
like, yep, this checks out.
it literally like within that first 10 minutes, I funny enough too. We had storms here last night in Illinois and everything, and my power
Yeah.
went out 10 minutes into the movie, and it was like almost like Mother Nature telling me like, "Man, you sure you want to watch this? Are you sure?" Because like yeah, by that 10 minute mark, I was like, I know exactly what movie this is going to be, and I don't know if I really want to stick around to watch it. It didn't necessarily. Now I know I texted something in the chat and made it seem like maybe I'm pissed off about this movie, and maybe my rating will reflect that, but maybe it won't. Because when we get to final thoughts, I'll go over this again. But this movie never really angered me, but it didn't do anything to make me go, would I ever watch this again or recommend this to somebody? Like and it's like, would I even consider this good or decent? And frankly, I looked at the original rating I wrote down in my notes, and I was like, yeah, but like other movies I've given this rating to, and not to compare movie to movie, I'm like, there is at least something there. I can't say that with Unfrosted. I look at Unfrosted, I'm like, there's really nothing here. Like, yeah, sure. I mean, we talked about like there's a few scenes like there's a cameo I
Some
love.
gags, right? Some
Yeah,
30-second gags.
some
That's it.
30
That's
second
all you
gags
have.
that would have been better as like maybe just honestly if Jerry Seinfeld wanted to get back and do like a TV show and just have like maybe expand on some of these ideas because that's what these all
If
feel
Funny
like.
or Die wants to hire Jerry Seinfeld
That
for
would
a
be
hot
perfect.
moment, that would be aces. Just absolutely great.
Because the amount of crazy shit that happens in this movie, and it's like you don't spend enough time for it really to develop out the crazy shit. Like look at an episode of Curb Your Enthusiasm. From beginning to end, the events that play out one up each other, and by the end of the story, it gets as crazy as this storyline can get. And the same could be said for Seinfeld. It feels like Jerry's trying to do that with this whole idea of making the Pop Tarts race almost like a space age race of us beating the Russians to the moon, but instead it's Kellogg's being post to the new, the new breakfast of the future and everything. It's got that whole idea, and like that right there, that is solid enough. That could be a funny parody. But when you try to incorporate all this other stuff and all these other characters, it really does feel like, man, you're not letting the craziness really play out of just this one idea of like, hey, what if like we did a movie where these two companies like acted like they were having like a space race with one another. I mean, like shit. There's a moment too where it's like the owner of Kellogg's, played by Jim Gaffigan, and the owner of Post are about to have sex. And it's just like, okay, is this going to be a thing? And then like they never talk about it again. They never go over it again. It's literally like
these characters are wafer thin.
yeah, they're wafer thin and their scenes mean nothing. Nothing comedically that happened in the last scene won't build into the next scene. And yeah, when we do come off of a film like Barbie, where stuff does build one after another, and we do get that wacky stuff that we got with like Mattel with Will Ferrell's character, there's a good balance of that. You have that wacky side right there, but then you have like the more dramatic and even comedic moments of what's happening in Barbie Land and between Barbie and Ken.
Matt Damon's character in Air, he had arcs.
Yeah,
he had like an arc.
Yeah.
And he had like character traits.
Bateman, and then like he's making you
100%, 100%. Jerry Seinfeld, absolutely nothing, not a single one.
No, nothing at all. Like I don't even know, like the whole movie's beginning too. It starts in a narration, and it was just like there was no point to this. Like even where the movie ends, I was just like,
yeah, what is this framing device?
I was like, what's the point of this, Jerry? Like you're just being nice to a kid and telling him about a story.
It's a parody, right? So he's parodying that type of opening.
Yeah.
But again, it serves nothing.
It serves nothing.
It really doesn't. So it's at that point, if it doesn't serve anything for this, good character arcs or whatever, that's fine. At that point, the craft has to be really good, and the comedic craft is not there. You're not doing an airplane. You're not doing a Top Secret. You don't have that earnestness or that deadpanness to it,
no.
And therefore it doesn't quite resonate with us. I'm sure a lot of boomers are going to find this absolutely hilarious because the serotonin levels are going to pop off every time a new cameo pops on screen. I'm sure everyone's dads are going to love this.
That's exactly what went through my head. All I thought about was I know some people who would watch this, and because an actor would pop up, they think they're having a good time. And the fact that this also ends with bloopers and a dance number is trying to sell it even more. Like, didn't you have a good time watching this?
I said that when this movie started, a bad taste entered my mouth, and it was the same. No, it took a nosedive. I was eating shit with that. I was like, oh, this is so emblematic. This is of everything. This blooper reel and everyone having a good time, like dancing. Which, like, I'm all for blooper reels at the end of movies. That's funny. But the dancing thing was so not good. I don't know what it is. And it's not, I'm not asking for a hard edge, right? I'm not saying they should have dropped more F-bombs. I'm not saying that there should have been actual sex scenes or anything. It should have been raunchy. No, that would have been even worse. And the thing is that there is no earnestness here, which is what we get in Barbie, which is what we get in Air, which is what we get in, what's the most recent sports movie that I think you gave no, that was Challengers. Never mind. That's a completely different movie. I don't know why I went there, but anyway, yeah, it's those are the Weird Al. Weird Al, even though it is more airplane-like wacky parody,
it focuses on Weird Al though. The whole way through. It's and it ended that too.
100%, and that is what Unfrosted tried to be, and what I was hoping for it to be. Again, we all want everything to be good. We all want it to contribute well to the wider world, and I was really hoping for something really more clever and earnest here, but this really just felt like a comedy hangout and tax write-off, which is like, okay.
I'll say one last thing and we can go to break, and then we go. Are you cool to go into final thoughts after break?
Yeah.
What this did remind me of too is this new wave of comedy, like adventure movies almost too. Free Guy and Ghosted. Free Guy starring Ryan Reynolds, Ghosted starring Chris Evans and Ana de Armas. These are two movies that are littered with references and cameos to other things, and those movies really coast on by with that. And even the director of Ghosted talked about how, like, this is kind of like a new genre. It's like, a new way of making comedy that doesn't that doesn't really insult anybody. Like, he said something along the lines of that, how like this new wave of like having like cameos pop up and everything because like the lead actor is like really good friends with a lot of people and everything. And it's just like, this really isn't like a way to make a movie. This is like a bunch of nothing happening on screen. Free
It's
Guy
like
at least,
Family Guy technique, but
yeah,
even worse.
it really is. Free Guy at least has a plot line, but I still didn't like that movie because of what it was and what it tried to do, and then ultimately just gives up at the end and becomes references galore. But we'll get into our final thoughts when we come back after our Zoom sponsored intermission. Keep it locked in here for Sleepless with Steve. Back and better than ever here on Sleepless with Steve without Steve, except in memoriam right here on my chest. Like
Steveless with
Steve
sleep.
No, I know we tried like coming up with that title as well, and that shit just did not work. We're gonna give our final thoughts here on Unfrosted, Jerry Seinfeld's new movie on Netflix. Dom, you can go first, and then I'll go.
Yeah, so final thoughts overall, quite disappointed with this movie. I didn't have my hopes up for it, but there was definitely a window of opportunity for a really clever because even as much as we loved Barbie and Air and the Weird Al movie, I was looking for. I'm down to like when the joke is good. I'm okay with it
Yeah.
because not on a personal Wonder One level. That's not a great strategy, but in terms of these bigger properties, yeah, hell yeah, dude. Mattel's making a cinematic universe. That's freaking hilarious. Honestly, on its face, I have no hope for that whatsoever. Unfortunately, Unfrosted does not have any of the genuine earnestness of that. I keep using that word. I hate that word. Uh, the thing that makes the things it's trying to parody actually good movies. That is what Unfrosted completely lacks, and it has that vibe of just rich people hanging out, rich comedians who've made it all hanging out, and just kind of like wasting our time. Honestly, the last third of this movie, I think after the JFK scenes, I put this on like 1.5 speed. I was done with this movie completely. This is the 1 out of 4 stars for me.
Oh wow,
Um,
okay. Holy crap. Dom, you
yeah.
gave it a lower rating than me.
Oh,
Yeah, man, for me, I'm almost right there with Dom, and I might revisit this movie when we come to our worst of list, because I'm telling you right now, this is on my worst of right now, along with two other movies.
hell yeah.
Because it is that bad. I don't think, man, do I want to give it 1 star? I don't know. Anyways, there are moments throughout this movie I did chuckle at, and like I said, I got a few good laughs. Um, and it never angered me. It never pissed me off like some other comedies have done that I've given
Yeah.
1 star to.
That was not an infuriating 1 out of 4 star,
Yeah,
like a hard middle finger
yeah.
1 out of 4 star. It was more like a come on, dude.
Like
What are you doing, Jerry?
movie 43 is a 1 star go fuck yourself kind of like comedy.
That's what I've heard from people. That's absolutely what I've heard from
Like
people.
especially, and it's the same idea too. You get all that talent and you wasted my fucking time with it.
Mm.
This here, while it has all the talent, there are moments that I did chuckle, and I did have a good time. Uh, but I mean, it's so far and few between those moments, and to get to those moments, you have to sit through a lot of bad humor, and bad as in just it doesn't stick, it doesn't land. They're trying way too hard. They're not trying enough. This movie is just it feels directionless. It really does feel like Jerry just wanted to do something with his friends. It
And
really
it's
does
not
feel
so
like
much that
that.
I'm totally interrupting your review. I'm
No,
sorry,
go
but
ahead.
is the it's not so much the jokes are lame
Yeah.
inherently. Like some of those jokes I feel like could be really funny. Like
Yeah.
Chef Boyardee just showing up out of nowhere could be really funny. I don't know what okay. I'm sorry, that came out of my mouth, but it was like I don't want to break down every single joke. I think Larry David not being involved with Jerry Seinfeld anymore really took the edge out of Jerry Seinfeld for me
Yeah.
personally. I
I
think that's what it was. I think that's what makes the sitcom Jerry Seinfeld so great, in
yeah.
my mind, and not so
it,
much
it is
post Larry
that
David Jerry
it is
Seinfeld.
that edginess he's missing, and he's gone on, and I even say this too. I don't mean to get all political here at the end of this review, but like he's gone on like before the weekend of this movie came out. He was on TMZ, he was on talk shows talking about how like, hey, political correctness is killing comedy. And sure,
Jesus.
there might be an argument to be made there for some comedians, depending on who they are and whatnot. Um, but Jerry, if this is honestly your comedy, political correctness is not killing your comedy. You're doing that
Yeah,
yourself. Like,
I can see Chappelle making that, and he has made that argument.
yeah, and he
Uh,
has, yeah,
Also, and even Bill Burr at times, although I love Bill Burr. At times he's made some of those comments.
yeah.
Meanwhile, Jon Stewart, I think, made a direct clapback, or at least indirect, vaguely indirect clapback, where it's like, yeah, no, I've only lost like 1 or 2 words. You can still make really funny jokes. Just look at the news. That's my whole thing. I'm
Yeah,
timeless because of this.
yeah. God bless Jon
Anyway, I'm
Stewart.
so sorry. Please complete your
No, no,
thing,
no, no.
your final
I
thoughts.
man, look, like this movie. I don't give a shit how many
Who
times
gives a shit? Yeah.
I don't care how many times you interrupt me in this movie because this movie is being interrupted by the amount of fucking characters they bring in. There's so many characters in this movie. There's about as many characters
That's
as
so
there.
true.
There's about as many characters as there is Pop Tart flavors on the goddamn shelf. All right. This movie is 1.5 out of 4 stars for me, and it will show up on my worst of list, guaranteed, because it's like right at the cutoff of 1 to 1.5. That's where it's at right now. It's like
If this movie does not make our worst of list somehow, then this was a bad year for movies.
and trust me, man, I got 2 other ones on there. I look at them, I'm like, damn. I'm like, we talked about one on the show. It's Argyle. But the other one we haven't talked about on the show. And I'm like, oh, man. If this if anything surpasses that movie, that's terrible. But we'll wait until the end of the year to go over that. But anyways, that is our review of Unfrosted. If you really want to go watch it after hearing all that, you can go on Netflix and watch it for yourself and maybe point and go, I understood that reference all the time when someone pops up on screen. Anyways, we're going to transition here into our news story for this week. It wasn't on the bottom of the scroll because for some reason, every time I tried typing it in, it had a trademark symbol at the end of it, which I thought was really weird. I tried copying and pasting it, also had the trademark still. But Dom found this really interesting article from the Hollywood Reporter that kind of goes over, and we won't spend too much time on this, but it is kind of funny to see some of these charts, like Dom, you were saying in the green room.
It's less interesting, more infuriating.
Yeah.
Um,
Um,
uh,
But this goes
but
over the Hollywood CEO mega pay chart and what the top executives' compensations and what they were revealed. It's honestly infuriating in a funny way to see this after the strikes and everything, and really like take everything in perspective. But Dom, go ahead, man.
yeah, this should make you upset. This should make you upset straight up. Um, and it's like none of these people earned this that much money compared to the labor that they're absolutely not putting in. But that's all beside the point. I am glad that some of this news is becoming more mainstream, happening more often. It's a popular thing that people are looking at more. And there's more systemic reasons. It's not just the CEOs. You can look at some of the nameless boards of directors with these companies as well,
Yeah.
and up and down the, who's funding who. But anyway, this is kind of an easy one for us. Joe, please flash that chart if you haven't already. Do you notice? I am so glad that they added the faces of all these CEOs. Do
Yeah, I
you
did too.
notice a little something uh, on the faces of these CEOs?
Um,
A distinct pattern, a couple of patterns here.
yeah, there's a lot of patterns if you ask me. They're all white. They all look old, and they're all men. Like,
They're all dudes. And I'm sure you could throw in another media company there with a woman on it or a person. I don't, whatever.
yeah.
It's fine. And then that's kind of a joke in and of itself.
You know what?
But no, some interest.
You,
Yeah,
I
go
was gonna
ahead.
say, you know what? I was actually surprised right off the bat here. I don't mean to cut you off, but
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Bob Iger, I'm actually surprised about his earnings for last year compared to 2022. Nah, I mean it's still a lot of money, but I was like, huh, I actually thought that was more. But go on.
They did have an asterisk on his name, and I
Oh, they
think that it
do.
has to with the whole thing with the Chapek and all that stuff.
Yeah, probably. Okay, go on.
Yeah. But it's really interesting. First of all, looking at that chart again, Ari Emanuel, CEO of TK Group slash Endeavor. That is wrestling.
Oh
That's wrestling.
wow. Okay, I was gonna ask you what the hell that was.
Yeah. Formerly Vince McMahon, but he sold to this dude, I believe. So that's what you see. Again, it's not well, it is proportionate, but compare it's a comparison, the red and the black, red for 2023, black for 2022, and the percent pay change. Um uh
339. Jesus
yeah, yeah.
Christ.
It's honestly insane. For me, once like a number reaches like six digits, so hundreds of thousands, it ceases to make sense to me. In my practical daily life where I'm trying to cut back on like drinks at a bar. Um, yeah, and can we all shed some tears for the bottom of this chart? Andy Jassy at Amazon. Man, what are you doing? What's happening here, bro? 1.4 million.
That, that
That's
that was something I was actually surprised by too. I was like, Amazon's at the bottom. Like, I
Yeah,
mean,
but as the box here states, pay is connected to stock buy.
yeah,
It's that thing about like why don't we just tax the billionaires?
yeah.
Oh, and it's a little harder than it's not as hard as you think it is, but it's not so much because technically, what was it like? I forget which CEO, but technically, like one of these multi-million, hundreds of millions of dollars CEOs, their worth, they actually technically make like $88,000 a year because it's all in stocks
Yeah.
or it's all in liquid assets. It's ways to game the system because technically
It's
what they're
what Jordan
doing is
Belfort was
legal.
doing.
You know what? Yeah, sure, exactly. And the message in Wolf of Wall Street is that the financial system is completely screwed.
Yeah.
That is the message of the movie. Jordan Belfort wins in the end. But regardless, there were some. That's the basic premise of it. This is basically a punching bag, as it should be. But there were some other interesting things as well. So, Joe, if you could scroll down a little. Oh, geez, it's hard. Like the first advertisement after after the chat there, after the charts. Cases in point 2021 when Zaslav's discovery compensation spiked to $246 million, driven by his team striking the mega deal to create Warner Brothers Discovery. So that was another landmark deal. Same as with in later when his when his 130 million dollar pay was driven by large upfront grants tied to his company's stock performance as part of another long-term employment contract. So it is again hilarious, as you said, Joe. It's hilarious how we get this story in the wake of the writers' strikes
Yeah.
from last year and other strikes that are happening as well. So there's actually really not too much fluff to go in here without me looking like a fucking communist or some shit going on like multi-hour tirades about whatever financial system. But honestly, it's just something to remind ourselves, right? That if you really think about it, how much work are these people putting in relative to the people that are not making as much as them,
Yeah.
who are putting in long hours to, build your sets, put on makeup. Uh, I recently, and look, again, I hope people realize, and I'm big about this too. There are multiple classes of like millionaires. I really do believe that $1 million is actually not a lot in the United States if you really think about it. Um, there are probably some millionaires that maybe you don't know, but live closer than you think,
Oh yeah.
right? So, for instance, actors, there's definitely a Hollywood elite, but they're not really on the same class as like Bob Iger or David Zasloff. That's another like extra class
Yeah.
of human being,
Yeah.
and not a particularly good one, but still. But yeah, anyway, I was just thinking to like Walter Goggins putting on like all that makeup for Fallout every single day.
Oh yeah.
There's like, they do time lapses of like, here's my makeup routine for
Yeah.
this crazy sci-fi show that I'm doing. And it's like, damn, that's a lot of work. You should absolutely be compensated. Yes, you are a famous actor, but you should still be compensated for that.
Oh yeah.
And you know what? These CEOs, they should be compensated too, but also maybe not that.
Not that much. No.
Or like maybe we should tax them or find a way to share some of that wealth. I don't know. And if you're watching this show and you're looking at us making these comments and going, no, they deserve all of that, maybe rethink your life. I don't know. Anyway, I made like 7 points there extra that I told myself I wasn't going to. I'm sorry, Joe. Do
No,
you have
you're good.
anything else to add?
No, I really don't, because like these guys, like these guys are like they're the head of these studios and everything, and they've made decisions throughout throughout the time they've been the CEO that like are questionable, like tax write-offs with certain movies and canceling them, or thinking that what these people are getting paid and like what's in their contract is fair enough compared to what they're getting paid. And
Mhm.
it's insane to look at, like, seeing these totals and being like, wow, like, did Bob Iger feel that way about the strike because he lost, he was down 44% from his, 2022 pay, which is still 38 million, which is a lot of money. Like, and you're Disney, bro. You're going to get out of this rut that like Disney's kind of going through right now, creativity wise. Um, you're going to be fine.
I cannot wait for the next Bob Iger story. I'm so curious where that goes because the Chapek was the scapegoat. He
Yeah.
could have sailed away,
Yeah.
and like people will look back and be like, no, there were some issues that he was definitely brewing as well. But now that he's back in control, I'm so curious to see how the vibes. I mean, fuck him, I don't give a shit. But like, I am curious where the Bob Iger story goes
Yeah.
and what the final chapter will look like.
No, honestly, yeah, it's interesting to see like how that's gonna play. Especially the one I'm interested in the most is Zaslav, because he's made the most cutthroat decisions that have angered a lot of people.
It's so cartoonish, yeah.
Like, and I'm not talking about people
Warner,
on the internet, like the
yeah.
fucking fans of like Batgirl and shit. No, I'm talking about like the directors of Batgirl were pissed off about that. Like you read the whole story about they found out like while they were at their sister's wedding. It's like that's fucked up.
We were close to drawing a line in the sand with the Wile E. Coyote movie. That was like our
That was the world's breaking point. Was Wile E. Coyote, a court drama with him, a court comedy drama.
I was looking forward to that movie.
No, I
No
was
doubt.
too. I mean, it was written by James Gunn. It had a solid cast. I was like, hey, this looks like
The
fun.
concept is great. It's like
It
it's like
is.
how I got excited about Unfrosted for a second. I'm like, oh, this could be this is an opportunity to be really clever and really
Yeah,
funny and poke fun at things. But I don't know.
but
We'll never
unfortunately,
know.
yeah,
We'll never know how mediocre it actually was.
yeah. According to Will Arnett, I think that's who. No, not Will Arnett. I forgot who it was, but the guy that was basically the main lead with Wild E. Coyote, he said he
Mhm.
saw it and he loved it. But that's going to be just about it here for Sleepless with Steve here on YouTube. We'll be back next week, same time, same place, 6:30 on Wednesday to 7:30 Central Standard Time. We'll be reviewing Late Night with the Devil, which I still have not
Yes.
watched yet. I will be watching this weekend. I can't wait to
Is
see
it in
it.
theaters now?
No,
In
it's
wide
on, it's
release?
on Shudder.
It's on
It
Shudder.
had
That's
its
right.
wide release already. I missed it.
It's wide release with like one showing a night
Dude,
at
honestly,
7 p.m.
what was it? I went to go see when I went to go see Ghostbusters, it was playing. And I remember like I got out of the theater. I went, oh, I mean, like there is an 11 p.m. showtime. Should I go to it? But I was like, no, I got
But you
this.
were in school.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
was
yeah,
like,
yeah.
I got school and everything.
No, you made the right choice.
So I am looking forward to watching it, though. I'm looking forward to seeing what you guys thought about it because you guys have been kind of sprinkling your thoughts throughout each show that we've gotten closer and closer to it. So I'm looking forward to discussing about this, and I'm sure you are, Dom. You were the first one to see it out of all of us, too. So yeah, catch us here next week for our review of Late Night with the Devil. Till then, this is Sleepless with Steve, and we will see you next time, Late Night with Sleepless with Steve.
A little better, a little better. You finished.